So, Jai Bhim Namo Buddhaya. And we will begin with our Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So last class we have just began with the introduction of the part 5, and the part 5 is about what is Dhamma, Saddhamma, and we have looked at the content of the part 5 in the previous class, and we know that the content itself is very important key to understand the entire part 5. And today we are going to look at the section 1, which is titled as the functions of Saddhamma, and which is further divided into subsections, which are titled as to cleanse the mind of its impurities is the function of Saddhamma, and the second is to make the world a kingdom of righteousness. In other words, Dhamma Rajya. So there are two functions of Saddhamma, but you will note that the functions of Saddhamma, as Baba Ambedkar has taught in this particular section 1, is not just limited to just these two, but he has quite expanded the list. And we are going to look at how Baba Ambedkar has done this. So this section 1, I think, is a very critical section for us to understand the function of Saddhamma and hence the philosophy of Dhamma and the very essential categorization that Baba Ambedkar has done in the Buddha and his Dhamma in terms of Dhamma, Adhamma, and Saddhamma. So the function of Saddhamma, section 1, and the first subsection is to cleanse the mind of its impurities. So here Baba Ambedkar began with emphasis on what is called the mind or mana. And we know that in Buddhism, the prime importance is given to the mind. And the Buddha was the first philosopher or religious, the founder of a religion who stressed on the importance of mind. And we know that the Buddhist sutras are all about how we can make our mind pure, how we can remove the impurities of the mind. And in traditional Buddhist sense, the mind which is pure, which is having no impurity, amala. Mala is, of course, an Indic word which means impurity, and amala means no impurity. So amala mind, the amala chitta, is considered to be the chitta of the Buddha, because the Buddha has purified all the impurities of the mind. And we know that how much importance Baba Ambedkar has given to the purity of mind when we studied the part on what is Dhamma. And therefore, I think this particular subsection to cleanse the mind of its impurities doesn't need much of an explanation. But by the way of an explanation, Baba Ambedkar has cited the very first two gathas of the Yamak Vagga of Dhammapada here. And there is a commentary, on the various gathas of Dhammapad in the Chinese Dhammapad and in some of the extended commentaries on Dhammapad. So this particular subsection begins with the story of Buddha is invited by Prasannajiit, and the scene of the public discourse or a pravachan that we see here is a marketplace, is a square highway. And on the highway, the Buddha has given a discourse, Dhamma discourse, and two merchants which are doing their trade on that highway are listening to the Buddha's sermon or the Dhamma talk, and both of them have a different mindsets towards the same thing that is happening there. That is why the king Prasannajiit is inviting the Buddha to give talks. And one of the persons have what you can say impure mind, and another person is having the pure mind. And the person with the impure mind, the businessman with an impure mind, he drinks in the night, and he loses his conscience, and then he sleeps on the highway. And in the morning, when the merchants are moving their merchandise, that man is crushed under the wheel of a wagon. And the other man, having left the town, is selected as a king by the process of a horse let loose by the people, and whoever before the horse genuflects, that person would be appointed as a king. That was the kind of ritual. So a horse genuflects before the merchant with a pure mind, and then he becomes the king. And having become a king, he goes to the Buddha, he invites him to his kingdom, and he requests the Buddha to give the matok. So having given the Dhamma talk, the Buddha reflects on these two gathas about mind. And we know that these gathas are very important, and they convey the essence of Buddhism. So what are these gathas? The gathas, of course, we know in Pali, we can recite them very easily. And they are very famous gathas like Manopubbangama Dhamma, Manositta Manomaya, Mansache Paduttena Bhasati va Karoti va Tatonang Dukkham Anveti Chakham va Vahatopadam. The translation that is being done here is: the mind is the origin of all this is. The mind is the master, the mind is the cause. If in the midst of the mind there are evil thoughts, then the words are evil, the deeds are evil, and the sorrow which results from sin follows that man, as the chariot wheel follows him who draws it. And then, there is Yamak Vagga is about twin gathas. So one is a negative gatha and one is a positive gatha. Then another gatha goes like this: Manopubbangama Dhamma, Manositta Manomaya, Mansache Pasannena, Bhasati va Karoti va Tatonang Sukha Anveti, Chaya va Anpaini. And the English translation of this is like this: the mind is the origin of all that is. Manopubbangama Dhamma. It is the mind that commands. Manositta. It is a mind that contrive. Manomaya. If the mind, there are good thoughts, then the words are good and the deeds good. And the happiness which results from such conduct follows that man, as the shadow accompanies the substance. So, the Buddhism is all about the concept of mind and knowing the mind, and Buddha is considered to be one of the greatest psychologists who has understood the nuts and bolts of mind. And we know that there is a Pitak devoted to the study of mind called Abhidhamma Pitak, and it goes into the lot of categorization of the mind. And from the study of this Abhidhamma Pitak, we have seen that the different philosophical schools have risen about the nature of mind. And there is a school in Buddhism called Yogacara, which says that the everything is mediated by consciousness, nay, everything is consciousness. And we have seen the sophisticated development of logic based on this concept of mind. And there are, of course, the mind is called differently in different sutras in Buddhism. There is no one single word for mind. The mind is called mana, like in this gatha of Dhammapad, the mind is called mana, and mana is considered to be one of the 6 organs, just like sense organs, just like we have 5. And everything happens in the mind, because mind makes sense of everything. So mind makes sense of the world, from the data brought into it by the 5 sense doors, and therefore mind is considered to be is the main organ. And it's the mind that shapes our perceptions. What we see, what we hear, and how do we select what we hear, is all mediated by mind. So mind, there is one word called mana, and there is another word called vidyan. And we know that there are vidyans like mano vidyan, there is chakku vidyan, there is a sota vidyan. So depending on our sensual doors and the object up there is a vidyan. So another word for mind is vidyan, and there is another word for mind in the technical abhidhammic sense is a chitta. And chitta is more subtle, and that's how it's classified in in Abhidhamma Pitak. But here we see the use of the word mana, and we know that the mind or the mana is a very central to Buddhism and to cleanse the mind of its impurities. So to continuously work on cleaning the mind of its impurities, one of the functions of the Dhamma. So moving on to the second subsection of the section 1. This subsection is not different from the section 1 because both of them tie together, and that's why I have taken them together today so that we can understand the intrinsic relation between the subsection 1 and subsection 2. They have to be read together, and then we can understand the very the kind of the depth of the thoughts that Baba Ambedkar has tried to communicate here. So the second subsection is headed as to make the world a kingdom of righteousness. So first subsection is titled as to cleanse the mind of its impurities, and the second section is titled as to make the world a kingdom of righteousness. So what is the purpose of religion? So Baba Ambedkar goes into the purpose of religion in terms of other religions, so that we comparatively understand what is the purpose of the Buddhism. And here Baba Ambedkar goes, he raises a question: what is the purpose of religion? Different religions have given different answers, as we know. And the verse number 3 says, to make man seek after God and teach him the importance of saving his soul is the commonest answer one gets to this question. And then most religions speaks of 3 kingdoms. So one is called the kingdom of heaven, the second is called the kingdom of earth, and the third is called the kingdom of hell. So of course the kingdom of heaven is ruled by the God, and it's considered to be the supreme place. And kingdom of hell is of course led by the evil one, and the earth is an undisputed field. It is not under the dominance of the evil one. At the same time, God's sovereignty does not extend to it. It is hoped that one day it will. Okay, so you see that there are these various places in the religions, and for the human mind of the past, it was conceived, the human mind conceived the world that the way it is, that different planes of existence, and Buddhism was not immune from it, though it doesn't form the core doctrine of Buddhism. But there are also different planes of existence that have been taught in Buddhism in terms of the heaven and hell, and in terms of the animal realm and Petaloka and Narakloka and whatnot. So this what is it called, the world view, all the world system that are being taught in Buddhism, they are not essential to the practice of Buddhism, and one can just discount them, keep it as as it is. And the world system taught by the Buddha, or the which are come into Buddhist literature, they are not hierarchical ones, and anybody can go in any of the planes of existence depending on their purity of mind in terms of how they cultivate their minds. But we don't have to make too much about it, because it's not the essential part of Buddhism the way it is for the other religion in terms of heaven and hell and whatnot. So I think Baba Ambedkar is very, very succinct here in explaining the importance of it. In other religions, the kingdom of heaven is not on earth. It is another name for heaven. It can be reached by one who believes in God and his prophet. When he reaches heaven, all the carnal pleasures of life are placed within the reach of all those who are faithful. So in a sense, the heaven is the extended version of having the world which move with more carnal pleasure. And we know that the doctrine of the Buddha can be, captured in one single word: nekkhamma, not doing, not indulging into sensuality. So this concept of heaven and hell in terms of the sensuality is completely absent in Buddhism. And whatever there is in terms of the borrowed from that cultural realm in which the Buddhism was happening, that's of no consequence to understand the practice, the important teachings of the Buddha. To the question, what is the purpose of religion? The Buddha's answer is very different. Okay, what is the Buddha's answer? 11 verse, very important. The Buddha's answer is very important and we have to look into it. He did not tell people that their aim in life should be to reach some imaginary heaven. So to attain to any spiritual realm is not the aim in the life. Is not the aim in the life. The kingdom of righteousness lies on earth and is to be reached by man by righteous conduct. So this very earth can be converted into the kingdom of righteousness. That very earth can be transformed into the kingdom of righteousness. And how does one do it? It can be reached by man by righteous conduct. Now pay close attention to the kind of a chain of arguments or teachings that Baba Ambedkar has viewed here very beautifully. So it is to be reached by man by righteous conduct. So the righteous conduct is at the center of it. So what is the righteous conduct? What he did was to tell people that to remove their misery, each one, now the word, see the use of the word, each one must learn to be righteous in his conduct in relation to others. So this righteousness is not just for sake of achieving some heavenly sphere or heavenly or imaginary heaven. The righteousness in his conduct in relation to others, with other human beings, and therefore thereby make the earth the kingdom of righteousness. Now this very word in relation to others is very important. Righteousness not just for the sake of being right, not just for being sake of attaining some imaginary heaven. That is not the purpose of being righteous. The purpose of being righteous is always in relationship with other human being. And that's, I think, the heart of the Buddha's teachings, where he is teaching his disciples or to us that the kingdom of righteousness lies in how people conduct in relation to others, and therefore thereby make the earth the kingdom of righteousness. It is this which distinguishes his religion from all other religions. You see, the incentive for other people to be righteous is to attain some imaginary heaven or the fear of imaginary hell. But the purpose of Buddhism is to create the kingdom of righteousness here on the earth by being righteousness in the conduct in relationship with other human beings. So that's what we reach to the very heart or the essence of Buddhism. So we have seen the righteousness, we have seen the path of purity, we have seen the path of righteousness in the previous classes, in the previous discussions. We have seen that, and there the Buddha has emphasized on Panchashil, on the Ashtanga Marga and Paramitas, and very beautifully Baba Ambedkar has gone into the depth about all these categorization of the Buddha's teachings in terms of Panchashil, in terms of Ashtanga Marga and Paramitas. Why did the Buddha make them the basis of his religion? Because they constitute a way of life which alone can make man righteousness. So you see, to be righteous is not an easy task. It needs a lot of training. And we are going to see in this subsection. It's not easy to be righteous. So to practice, to become righteous, to become a man of a Dhamma, one needs to cultivate, one needs to practice, one needs to live a way of life which is based on Panchashil, which is based on Ashtanga Marga, and which is based on Paramitas. So why there is a misery in the world? And there are various different answers that the Buddha has given. And one of the definite answers that the Buddha has given, why there is suffering in the world, is due to man's misery, is the result of man's iniquity to man. A very profound sort of, so much, if we are so much confined to our narrow self, then we feel too much of a dukkha. If we expand our minds and embrace other people, there is a natural feeling of sukha. And Buddhism is, as we have seen, is a path from dukkha to sukha, from very narrow-mindedness to very open-mindedness. So our only righteousness can remove this iniquity and the resultant misery. That's why he said that religion must not only preach, but must inculcate upon the mind of man the supreme necessity for being righteous in his conduct. So it is not just, Buddhism is not just about preaching, but it is also about inculcating that the upon the mind of man the supreme necessity for being righteous in his conduct. For the purpose of inculcating righteous religion, he said, had certain other functions to undertake. So to inculcate righteousness is not easy, and there has to be some other functions that has to be undertaken in order to become a righteous man or a righteous woman. How do one do that? Religion must teach man to know what is right and to follow what is right. I think that's very important. And we have seen the glimpse of these teachings in the previous discussion. It's very important to know the truth as truth and untruth as untruth. And this is what Baba Ambedkar has so beautifully categorized, that the function of religion is that religion must teach man to know what is right. The function of the religion is not to blind the human beings, it is to make their minds, make their eyes open to know what is right and wrong. And it's not just to teach man to know what is right, but to also make him follow what is right. So it's not enough that this is right and this is wrong, but to make him follow what is right. And we have seen what is right and wrong in the previous discussion when we discussed the Kalama Sutta, where Buddha talks about what is right, what is wholesome, which leads to the welfare of you and others, which doesn't promote raga, dosa, moha in the world. It reduces it. You see, very beautifully, everything comes in a very proper sort of an organization if we look at the Buddha's teachings this way. So the verse number goes to verse number 20 goes like this, that religion must teach man to know what is right and to follow what is right. Religion must teach man to know what is wrong and not to follow what is wrong. Very, very important. Besides these purposes of religion, he emphasized two other purposes which he regarded as of supreme importance. So you see, now there are purposes like the purpose of Saddhamma. The purpose of Saddhamma is to create the kingdom of righteousness. Also, the purpose of Saddhamma is to understand, to know what is right and what is wrong, and to practice what is right and not practice what is wrong. These are the functions of the Dhamma. So, it's not just two subsections that we have seen, but, very Baba Ambedkar goes into depth of it. And we're going to encounter those depths now. So besides these purposes of religion, he emphasized two other purposes which he regarded as of supreme importance. The first is training of man's instincts and disposition as distinguished from offering prayers or performing observances or doing sacrifices. Very clear. The verse number 23 is very clear that the first is the training of man's instincts, because there are certain instincts in man which overpowers our mind so much that we are not able to see what is right or wrong. So what the Buddha recommends is the training of man's instincts and dispositions. Very key words, instincts and dispositions, because over the period of time we accumulate certain habits, and those habits become our disposition, and we are the way we have been living our lives. And that is what in verse number 23 the Buddha has taught. The first is training of man's instincts. So we need to train our instincts. We need to train our minds. It's not about offering prayers or performing observances and doing sacrifices. Very beautiful. And this the Buddha had made clear in his exposition of Jainism in Devadaha Sutta. So Devadaha Sutta, Baba Ambedkar cites here, and he talks about the Jain philosophy of how one can purify themselves. So verse number 26, I will directly go on to that. Being so, by expiration and purge of former misdeeds, and by not committing fresh misdeed, nothing accrues for the future. As nothing accrues for the future, the misdeeds die away. As misdeeds die away, misery dies away. As misery dies away, feelings die away. And the feelings die away, all misery will wear out and pass. That was the position of Jainism. And what was the position of Buddhism? On this, the Buddha asked this question: do you know that here and now wrong dispositions have been got rid of and right dispositions acquired. So at this moment, do we know that the wrong dispositions have been got rid of and right dispositions acquired? The answer was no. What is the use, asked the Buddha, of a purge of for former misdeeds? What is the use of non-committing fresh misdeeds if there is no training of mind to turn bad disposition into good disposition? So you see, the Buddha, the purpose of the religion is to offer a training so that the bad disposition can be turned into good dispositions. And this was, in his opinion, a very serious defect in religion because, and this is in italics, very few words or very few sentences in Buddha and his Dhamma are in italics, and this is in italics. A good disposition is the only permanent foundation of and guarantee of permanent goodness. Very beautifully, Baba Ambedkar has culminated this, that the training of mind is important. Why we need the training of mind? Because we need to train our instinct, we need to train our dispositions, transform them from bad to good. Why? Because only permanent foundation of and the guarantee of permanent goodness is a good disposition. Only the good mind, only the well-trained mind can be the guarantee of the permanent goodness. So you see the importance of training in Buddhism: training of mind, training of instinct, training of training of transforming this raga dosa moha into araga adosa amoha. Transforming all these bad dispositions in us into a positive dispositions. So that is why the Buddha gave the first place to the training of the mind, which is the same as the training of man's disposition. You see, the training of mind doesn't happen in abstract, because the mind cannot be just approached. The mind expresses itself through our speech and through our action. But behind that, there is a mind. And, in order to cultivate the mind, we have to cultivate our speech and we have to cultivate our action. Because then only we can cultivate our mind. So we cannot directly cultivate our mind, unless we cultivate all our speech and our deeds. And that's brings us in the realm of sila, because sila is nothing but the the cultivation of speech and the cultivation of deeds, the body. See, everything ties up together. And therefore, the Shila along with Samadhi is, and then cultivating the insight is the threefold path. We cannot separate the Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna from each other. They are the constituents of the same path. So when we talk about the purity of mind, we cannot but talk about how we can purify our bodily actions and how we can purify our mental actions. So you see, everything ties together here. So that's why the Buddha gave the first place to the training of the mind, which is the same as the training of man's disposition. So that's another purpose of the Saddhamma, is to train the human mind. Okay, is to conduct, is to offer him or her the tools to know what is right or wrong, and not only that, but to follow what is right and not follow what is wrong. And then we have come to a stage where the purpose of the Dhamma is to train the human mind, so that the human mind is always, is the foundation of permanent goodness. So that's where Baba Ambedkar introduces Sallekha Sutta. So here Baba Ambedkar has introduced two sutras. One is Devadaha Sutta and another is Sallekha Sutta. And the Sallekha Sutta is very profound, is very deep. But the central message of the Sallekha Sutta I'm going to read, and we will see how deep this particular subsection goes. In the Sallekha Sutta, the Buddha has emphasized this point. This is what he has said. You are to expunge by resolving that though others may be harmful, you will be harmless. You see, we are always moved by what other people are doing. We do not have our own agency. We are always tossed here and there by the actions and speech of other people, by the intentions of other people. We get swayed by the other people. But what the Buddha is effectively saying here is, you are to expunge by resolving, and mark this word resolve. that though others may be harmful, you will be harmless. Though others may kill, you will never kill. Though others may steal, you will not. Though others may not lead the higher life, you will. That though others may lie, traduce, denounce, or prattle, you will not. That though others may be covetous, you will not covet. Though others may be malignant, you will not be malignant. That though others may be given over to wrong views, wrong aims, wrong speech, wrong action, and wrong concentration, you must follow the Noble Eightfold Path. Right outlook, right aims, right speech, right actions, right mode of livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. That the others are wrong about the truth and wrong about deliverance, you will be right about the truth and right about deliverance. That the others may be possessed by sloth and torpor, you will free yourselves therefrom. That the others may be puffed up, you will be humble-minded. That the others may be perplexed by doubts, you will be free from them. That the others may harbor wrath, malevolence, envy, jealousy, niggardliness, avarice, hypocrisy, deceit, impervious, arrogance, forwardness, association with bad friends, slackness, unbelief, shamelessness, unscrupulousness, lack of instruction, inertness, bewilderment, and unwisdom. He will be reverse of all these things. That the others may clutch at and hug the temporal, nor lose their hold thereon. He will clutch and hung the things that are not temporal and will ensue renunciation. Nekhamma. I say it is the development of the will which is so efficacious for right states of consciousness, not to speak of act and speech. And therefore, Chunda, there must be developed the will to all the foregoing results I have detailed. Such is the purpose of religion as conceived by the Buddha. Now you see, this Sallek Sutta enters into the very heart of the Buddhist practices in terms of the resolution. Because the Dhamma has to be practiced because we want to practice it. We have resolved to practice it. And what is this resolution is all about? Whatever happens in the world, whatever people do, we will not do that. We will follow the path of righteousness. Now, everything comes to naught, everything comes to zero if there is no resolution, if there is no commitment, if there is no sort of the clear mind which knows what to be done, what to be said, without which even the Dhamma is not going to be effective. And that's what Baba Ambedkar is effectively saying. So what is the purpose of the Saddhamma is to create that resolution, is create that commitment in the mind of an individual. Sometimes we get disheartened, sometimes we feel that, why I'm doing this. But even if others are not doing it, even if others are not following it, it's our commitment, it's our resolution to follow it. Even the world may go this direction, we will not. We will go in the direction of the Buddha. We will have a personal commitment to it. So whatever that is, the purpose of Dhamma, what Baba Ambedkar is emphasizing here is the personal commitment. And the verse number 50, I say it is the development of the will which is so efficacious for right states of consciousness. So in order to attain the right states of consciousness, it's very important that the will has to be developed. The intention has to be developed. The resolution has to be developed. And that's why right resolution is the second anga of the Ashtangik Marga. It's a right resolution. The resolution to practice love, to practice dana, to cultivate the mind, So Samma Sankappo is very much, at the center of the Noble Eightfold Path. It comes second. If we see, the right vision and the right resolve. So you see what Baba Ambedkar is effectively saying here is that it's very important if one wants to cultivate good resolution, if you want to cultivate good mind, good mental state, good disposition, one has to train the mind. And the training of mind is impossible if one is not committed to the training of mind. If one is not resolved to transform one's mind. And Saddhamma offers a lot of help in this direction as to how one can resolve to cultivate one's mind and right states of mind, and not to speak of act and speech. So mind, body, and speech, the four areas of training that the Buddha has taught us, has to be backed by a very strong resolution. So the resolution is not about what others are doing. It's about you, it's about me, it's about every single human being, that they have to awaken that will in that direction. As Baba Ambedkar has taught in the previous sections of the Buddha and Dhamma, that we need to awaken that will. And if we take it as on a different level, it's a will, or what is called the intention. And that will to become the Buddha or to become a righteous being is the will, which is traditional in the so-called Mahayana context. It's called the Bodhicitta, the awakening of Bodhicitta, resolution to become the Bodhisattva, to attain to that which the Buddha has attained, or to practice walk on the same path that the Buddha has walked. So we see that what Baba Ambedkar has come to here in terms of this very profound section 1 of the part 5 of the Buddhism, the functions of Saddhamma. And Baba Ambedkar has gone into many functions, many purposes of the Saddhamma. And I'm going to just recapitulate the various functions. One of them is to really, train the mind, to guard the mind, to cultivate the mind, to practice the good, disposition of mind. And why one practices good disposition? Because that is the way to create the kingdom of righteousness on this very earth. And what is righteousness? Is one man's relationship with another human being, one human being's relationship with another human being. And we have seen at length as to how that is not just going to happen, because the human mind is disposed towards ego. The human mind is disposed towards greed, towards hatred, towards delusion. And the Buddha says that we can train our mind, we can train our being, we can cultivate our speech, we can cultivate our mind, so that we can create the kingdom of righteousness. You see, this whole, the sequence of teaching, starting from the importance of mind, or the emphasis on human mind as a source of good and bad. And then we see that the mind and the cultivation of the mind is the step towards the kingdom of righteousness. What is the cultivation of mind? Is cultivating the disposition. What is the good disposition? Is how we relate with other human beings. In other words, how we get rid of the raga, dosa, and moha, which entraps us into what is called the atta, atma bhav, ahankar, mamamkar, and manasuya, and so on and so forth. So we see that it is very clear as to the purpose of the Dhamma. The purity of the mind doesn't have to be practiced for reaching some kind of an imaginary heaven. This is very profound, because you see what a lot of Buddhist school talks about imaginary things, that if you be like this, you will attain to this loka or that loka or that loka. We will one day talk about different conceptions of loka, but they are not about these things. There are various mental sort of states that can be achieved by anybody. There is no hierarchy in that some people can achieve it and some people cannot achieve it. If one undertakes a particular practice, one can understand and these various phases of mind, but that doesn't mean that they are essential to Buddhism. What is essential to Buddhism is to create the kingdom of righteousness, and that's only possible if one is working on the human mind, training the human mind, in relationship, in how they relate with another human being. And why we cannot relate with another human being the way in terms of the righteousness? Because the unrighteousness, like raga, dosa, and moha, comes between the two human beings. And that's why the responsibility for this transformation, ultimately in the Sallik Sutta, the Buddha has entrusted upon all the individuals. Even if you are one human being on this earth, but you are practicing it in the right direction, that's enough. But don't get swayed by what is happening in the world, what other people are thinking, what other people are trying to push you in different direction. So the heart is the resolution, is the commitment, is the awakening of will is the awakening, desire to attain to nirvana, desire to become the Buddha. Asakti, one who is intent on becoming the Buddha, Bodhisattva. The word Bodhisattva means one is intent, asakta, one is intent on becoming the Buddha, Bodhisattva, isn't it? So, if that intention is awakened in us firmly, then everything follows automatically. So I think we have looked into this very important section of the part 5, the section 1, the function of the soul. So the mind, we have seen as to how Baba Ambedkar goes into deepening the meaning. His method is very simple. We have to read everything carefully. We have to untangle every single word very carefully, the sentence very carefully. We have to see for ourselves what Baba Ambedkar is trying to communicate as the essence of the Dhamma. And where does the responsibility lie? Responsibility doesn't lie on the God, it doesn't lie on the other human being, it doesn't lie on the guru or whatever. It lies on our shoulders. In other words, we all have to become the Dhamma Sainik, Dhamma Senapatis. Very beautiful. And there are verses in Buddha and Dhamma which really connotes that each human being should be very active. We cannot rely on others. That means self-reliance. The responsibility of making this world a better place or a bad place lies on our shoulder. One should be personally responsible for it. And that's how this particular section ends with that. So with this, I will stop the exposition on this, and we will open it up for any discussion or any thoughts that you would like to offer, or any clarification that you might need.
Yes, the wheel can only be awakened and set in motion. Yes. When there is there are right aims and aspirations which are noble and praiseworthy, not ignoble and unworthy. Means when there are right purposes, aims and aspirations, then this wheel can be awakened.
Yes.
And set in motion.
Very true. Yes, welcome, madam.
There is great difference between Jainism views and Buddha's views.
Yes. And the views of other religion in terms of, heaven and hell and, whatever, God, concept of God and that.
In the Jainism, they say that the wrong deeds can be removed by doing that what they do. But Buddha says that you cannot predict that the wrong deeds you are resolved, and then new deeds you will not commit.
Yeah. It's about drying up the old karmas and not letting the future karmas to arise. That's what the Jainism is about, as taught here in Devadaha Sutta. But Buddhism goes deep into that. Buddha asks us to do the right actions in the world. I think which is very sort of which makes Buddhism a very what we can say the action religion. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Isn't it? So Buddhism doesn't teach passivity as often taught by some of the schools. Buddhism doesn't talk about being passive in the world. Buddhism talks about Buddhism is not about indifferentism. Buddhism is about engagement. Buddhism is about engaging with the world. If there is no engagement, there is no Buddhism.
Training of the mind.
Training on the mind, engaging with the world, doing whatever we can do to the world to make it a better place, to give whatever we can, to practice right things, That's why Buddhism starts with sharing, dana. Isn't it? Sharing with the others. Buddhism starts with, this very radical sort of an approach, that not accumulating, but giving. Not having a closed mind, but an open mind.
Good disposition.
Good disposition. And why we do it? Because we want to create the kingdom of righteousness, and not to attain to any imaginary place. Not to attain any heaven or any, an imaginary place, as Baba Ambedkar has made so beautifully clear here.
Righteous conduct with other person.
Yes, that's very important. A righteous conduct is nothing but the Shila. You know, Shila is all about how do we relate with each other. Anything else? If not, then we will take a pause here and we will meet next week. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim, Madam. Jai Bhim.